News Talk 580 KMJ and Talk Radio 105.9 FM KMJ. Chris Daniel here. Phones will open up in a little bit because we've got some discussion to do in a few minutes. We've got to get you set up and into the situation, although some of you know about this already. I guess, was it the 9th? Yeah, it was a Monday, I believe, or over the weekend. The Bee did this story, this heartbreaking story of this Clovis couple, Doug and Linda Wilkinson, who lost their daughter up at Children's Hospital, and they have joined a coalition. It's statewide. What they're trying to do is repeal a 38-year-old law in California that caps medical malpractice damages from pain and suffering. Now, some other things like costs and legal fees, they still remain uncapped, but this has been capped for pain and suffering again at $250,000 since, I believe, 1975. And again, the case here, heartbreaking. The situation, though, not entirely black and white. I mean, there are some things here that could affect your health care costs should this be lifted. At the same time, why are we still working on that way? And they have joined a campaign called 38 is Too Late. They're trying to repeal this 38-year-old California law. Predictably, attorneys and healthcare providers are against it, and many, many, many are for it. We welcome to the program Doug and Linda Wilkinson. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Fine, thanks.
Guys, I know how busy you are. I know you're still grieving as well. Thank you very much for joining us in the program to talk about this.
You're welcome.
Okay. Doug, you're going to talk mostly about the 38 is Too Late campaign. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and Linda's going to tell the tale of your daughter. I'm assuming we're starting with the story of Brittany, right, Linda?
Yes.
Okay, feel free to take all the time you want and just tell us how it all went down, starting probably, I guess, when she got sick.
Well, Brittany lived with mitochondrial disease for her 18 years of life.
As do you, is that correct?
Yes, all three of my children, myself, and now one of my grandchildren.
Oh.
It's maternally passed down 100%.
Oh.
So,
wow.
That being said, it depends on where it is on the DNA strand, how you're affected throughout your life.
Yes.
Where Brittany was affected from birth, my other daughter wasn't affected until she was around 17, and it was brought on through some great stress that was in her life.
Okay.
So, and myself, I wasn't affected too much other than, your basic pain after activities until I lost Brittany, and now I'm having stroke-like events, and I'm on IV carnitine and IV fluids 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Do I have the disease right that it manifests in different ways, but one of the ways is the inability to turn food into energy? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Boy, I can't think of...
It affects every cell except red blood cell. And your brain takes the most energy, and people don't realize that thinking, hearing, sight, all that is energy that's
Yes.
being used.
Sure, just everything. Thinking, crying, anything would be.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. So
Brittany, at the 3rd grade, ended up in a power wheelchair. She had IV fluids and stuff like that from the very beginning.
Yes.
But in 3rd grade, she was in a power wheelchair, and up until the day she died, she was using a power wheelchair. Had a service dog. We still have Freedom, who works for me now.
he, by the way, is a cutie.
Yeah.
He's a yellow lab, guys, and he looks like Superman in this picture with his service vest on.
Yeah, she's actually so loyal and brought so much peace and comfort to Britt. She had her for 5 solid years, never without her, always at school with her, in the hospital, whether she was there a month or 2. So then the last year of her life, she was having trouble with, they had put 2 shunts in because she had something which was called cerebri, I guess. And it is something that boys or girls can get in their teenage years, and it's just where they get an excess of fluid. There's no rhyme or reason why, and it goes away. Some have to be treated, some don't.
It's a excess buildup of spinal fluid, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And she actually started with 1 shunt, and that wasn't enough, so she ended up with 2. And then throughout the year, she became over-shunted. So I was taking her in. She would lose her sight. She would have these massive headaches. And I kept taking her in, and they'd tell me everything was fine. So I finally decided to go to Stanford. And so we got to Stanford, and they compared the CT scans, and it showed that there was no fluid at all between the skull and the brain.
Oh.
So that's why the severe headaches.
Oh, my gosh.
So they sent us home because they didn't want to have to deal with anybody else's hardware that was put in her. And they expected her to be taken care of in about 3 days.
Okay.
I called and called and called until about the 3.5 weeks. I finally called the patient advocate and said, I cannot get the doctor to call me back, and Brittany can't even get off the couch. So within 30 minutes, I got the call to bring her in on September 3rd.
To Children's Hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was, unfortunately, Labor Day weekend. I say that because of afterwards finding out we should have had more help than we did get.
Yes.
But they took her in and they put an ICP probe in the brain, and they were monitoring her pressures, which showed she was over-shunted.
Yes.
So then the next day they wanted to go in, and they were supposed to clamp one shunt and then monitor her closely to see if she still needed the VP shunt or if it was just the lumbar shunt that needed to be shut off.
Yes.
Well, they took her in, and I might say they had her sign for herself because she was 18. However, I was there asleep. They did it at 6 in the morning, and Britt hadn't even been out of anesthesia for 24 hours. So she signed, and it said possibly, the 2 shunts. But I would have never, obviously agreed to that.
Because that was actually going against what you were trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we were told in OR when they talked to you right before that she was only going to clamp one. So then when she came out, obviously she was under anesthetic, and so by that evening, she was, kind of in a lot of pain, but I didn't know if it was just from the surgery. But she was very nauseated the entire night. Nothing was helping. I kept asking the nurse, Zofran always helps with her. What's going on? She told me, I don't know. I said, well, do you think we need to tell the doctor because she's very sick? And she said, well, let's just keep watching it. So by the next morning, she was worse, and you could see where she was getting worse and worse. She couldn't, stay awake to talk to me. I didn't know that it was, in and out of a coma. I thought it was the anesthetic. And I kept saying, well, this isn't right. She's usually better after surgery.
Yes.
Could you get the doctor? And about 1 o'clock, she started really kind of screaming and asking, please, Mom, get the doctor. I can't stand it. My head's hurting so bad. So I told the nurse to get the doctor. The nurse practitioner for Dr. Woodward came by. I said, please get the doctor. This isn't how Britt acts. She's screaming. She was screaming, if you don't want to help me, then let me die,
Oh, dear.
And then she would go back into this, sort of coma, I guess, because I couldn't wake her. And then, say 15 minutes later, she would wake up and say, get my doctor, tell her to take everything out of my head, let me die. And then she'd go out. And so
she was in absolute agony.
Yeah. And I asked, it's the nurse practitioner that follows the doctor, so she was coming by as a follow-up, but she didn't come in the room and check her. She just went to her chart and started charting. So I went out.
What?
We're charting, and I said, please get the doctor. It's not like Brittany. She's in pain. She doesn't even want to live. You have to get the doctor. So all these times that I'm asking, I'm thinking they're going to get the doctor. So then time passes because then I'm obviously right there with Brittany, praying with her, but begging God to help her, obviously.
Yes. Are you there? Okay.
About 5:20, she sat up and she had to use the restroom. And I said, well, Britt, do you want your pain medicine first or do you want to use the restroom? And she just said, Mom, I'm sorry, I couldn't wait. And then she fell back, and that was the last she breathed.
Oh, Linda, I'm so sorry. And Doug, I'm so sorry as well.
And so that's when we got a doctor, because they called it code blue.
Right. So that's when the doctor found a response.
A doctor that was in-house there in the ICU. So when he came in, he didn't know anything about Britt, had never met her. And so because the nurse had just given her some morphine, obviously he thought it was maybe an overdose or something.
Yes.
So he was working with Narcan to try and bring her back. And so it takes maybe 10 to 15 micrograms of Narcan, and they had done 150 or 1,500, and there still wasn't any response from Britt. So finally I was saying to the doctor, I said, I kept telling them we needed a doctor because the machine kept showing weird numbers. It would go minus 19 to 40 to 60 to 80. You could have heard a pin drop in there. He looked at the monitor. He moved the probe that's in her brain, and I think our pressures are supposed to be anywhere between 4 and maybe 9 or 10, and hers were at 177.
177?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So after CAT scans, we realized that they just blew her brain stem down her spine, and there was nothing left.
Oh, Linda, I'm so sorry. Listen, Linda, hang on just for a second. Okay, just catch your breath. We have to go to a quick break, and then we'll be back. We'll be back with Doug and Linda Wilkinson because of what you just heard. They have joined a coalition to repeal the medical malpractice damage cap for pain and suffering. It's set at $250,000 for 38 years. I'll let you guys talk about this in a little bit. First, we're going to hear more from Linda and from Doug on the 38 to life 38 is too long, campaign. When we return on KMJ. 3:19 traffic time. Here's Mark Holstein.
Yeah, pretty good drive out there. No accidents on the freeway. Everything is flowing at the limit. One accident in town. Searching far and wide for this one, but came up with one at Ball and Barton. That's a non-injury. A vehicle into a tree. We do have a vegetation fire with lots of smoke. I'm hearing Clinton at Highland, so you might even see the flames or the smoke in the air around there. Mark Holstein, KMJ traffic on the way to work, on the way home, anytime at KMJNow.com.
Thanks to thousands of Californians, Paul Blanco's Good Car Company now has 3 locations: Sacramento, Stockton, and Fresno. Our goal is to provide you with a selection of like-new Toyotas, Hondas, Nissans, Chevys, and Fords for about half what they sold new and for about half the payment in term 2. Whether you have good credit or bad, let over 121 banks and credit unions compete to approve you for our low rate guarantee. Get approved before you shop, then choose from almost any make or model. Call 225-1100 or paulblanco.com. That's 225-1100 or paulblanco.com.
Every month, Realty Concepts gives me what we call bullet points. This is what they want me to talk about. You know what? I don't need them. Let me tell you what I know. Once again in my life, a change of residence is in order. And who is listing my home? Of course. It's all about listing with Realty Concepts. Homes are selling in a matter of days. Not weeks, not months. I'm talking days, and they're getting more money than they've gotten in years. RealtyConcepts.com. Real estate the right way. 490-1500. 490-1500.
Do you love tractors? Pacific Ag Rentals does. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the biggest, baddest Challenger track tractor on planet Earth. The MT-875C Outlaw. And we've got the only one in California. Only one in California. This bad boy has 585 ponies under the hood. Custom paint, custom graphics. Ooh la la. And a real bad attitude. And it's available to rent from Pacific Ag Rentals. As a matter of fact, we're giving away a free month of rent. Free month of rent. That's right. 160 hours of use for free. Did you hear that? 160 hours of use on the Outlaw for free. Find out at PacificAgRentals.com today. Don't miss this opportunity to try the Outlaw and all of its awesome power. PacificAgRentals.com or call 1-866-727-7368. That's 1-866-727-7368.
So you decided to track down your 401k from an old employer, and you want to roll it into a brand new IRA. But who do you choose to manage your hard-earned retirement savings for you? Look, every investment company says it wants your rollover. But what do they do after they get it? Do their actions live up to their words? In many cases, the answer is no. Because many firms only value your retirement account until they get it. After that, it may not get the attention that it and you deserve. At the Mutual Fund Store, we're a little bit different. Our advisors are committed to helping hardworking people like you get the most from their investment accounts day in and day out, no matter how big or small they may be. So don't be fooled by grand promises. Come find the place that stands behind its commitments and its clients. Come see us at the Mutual Fund Store today. The client comes first at the Mutual Fund Store with custom investment plans to fit your goals, not ours. To learn more, visit mutualfundstore.com or call the Mutual Fund Store now in Fresno or Visalia. 559-434-9800. That's 559-434-9800.
Walmart presents The Art of the Barbecue. Fancy Art has a fancy frame around it. Barbecue Art is framed by beautiful condiments and sides, like 16-ounce Wishbone Italian dressing for just $1.98, 32-ounce Land O'Lakes heavy whipping cream for just $4.66, and 12-ounce Lee & Perrins marinade in a bag for just $2.88. You wouldn't frame the Mona Lisa with this stuff, but the Mona Lisa doesn't taste as good as your brisket. Save money, live better, Walmart.
This is a Toys R Us news update.
Toys R Us has a special message for toy fans of all ages.
Thank you.
To show their appreciation, Toys R Us has created their first ever Friends and Family sale. 3 days only in stores Thursday through Saturday. So stop what you're doing, go to ToysRUs.com, download your Friends and Family coupon, and save 20% on your entire regular price purchase.
Toys R Us. Why shop anywhere else for toys? Why?
In-store only. Exclusions apply. See Toys R Us for details.
News Talk 580 and 105.9 FM KMJ. Chris Daniel here. And we are with Doug and Linda Wilkinson, who you may have met through the article in the Sunday Bee. They are seeking to repeal, along with many others, and a real pitched battle is heating up here to repeal the medical malpractice payout caps, specifically as they pertain to pain and suffering. There's other malpractice laws that the state does not limit economic damage for medical costs and allows for unlimited damages for lost wages and earning potential. But that doesn't apply to the story of the daughter they lost in 2009, Brittany, at the age of 18. Linda has almost concluded the story of Brittany. And Doug, I know you're there. I'm going to get with you in a second. But Linda, thank you. Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for sharing this. It can't be the first time you've told the tale, and it can't get any easier. The part that really gets me of all of it is Brittany suffered from mitochondrial disease all of her life, but what took her life it really didn't have to do with the disease. It was buildup of spinal fluid and shunting and over shunting. And did you say that the normal cranial pressure registers between 4 and 9, and hers was 177? Is that right, Linda?
That's correct.
Oh dear. So her brain stem was just blown out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was nothing left. Her whole brain was destroyed.
And you have to imagine from what she was saying that she was in tremendous pain over that.
Yeah.
Like we can't even consider.
It kills me.
Linda, in your story, you described some of the actions of the physician's assistant, the attending physician at the time of Brittany's passing. But Brittany's actual doctor, where is she in this scenario, and when does she show up?
Well, when she got there that evening, I asked her, where have you been? You didn't even come back and check after surgery. She said, Linda, I was on the floor at 2 o'clock. I said, well, why didn't you come in? And she said, well, I didn't think anything was wrong. Nobody called me. And I said, but you were here on the floor, like 2 doors down. I don't understand why you just didn't come and look in. And she said, I thought everything was okay.
And that's it?
So, yeah. And she came about 7 that night, and Britt had stopped breathing at 5:20. And she said immediately, after she heard everything, she said it was a sentinel event, and I obviously didn't know what that meant.
What does that mean?
And I guess later I found it's a term that the hospital uses when somebody dies and it shouldn't have happened, and then they immediately start an investigation. but I didn't know at the time.
Do you find it surprising that she said that right away?
No, because she's an excellent surgeon.
Yes.
But she's kind of flighty, is the way I would like to describe her. Flighty, and she says things before she thinks. And I learned a lot that night.
Is part of the reason why you are considering malpractice the fact that you felt that the aftercare from this physician was not as up to par as, say, her surgical skills?
Correct.
Okay.
I think her surgical skills are excellent, but the aftercare is, it's never been the greatest, but this time it took my daughter's life.
How have you guys been since then? I mean, I know that's a kind of an obvious question, but...
Well, I'm being treated for post-traumatic stress disorder because I still have nightmares and night sweats, and I still see everything that happened. You know, it's just always in my mind sight. When I'm even talking to you, I can see it happening to her.
Well, first of all, thank you again for agreeing to talk to us about this. It was difficult to know what to do with this because I knew you would have to tell your tale, and thank you for going through the pain for the benefit of others in the future.
Well, I didn't feel like the paper really told the truth of everything. And so...
What did they leave out in your opinion?
Like all this, the things that happened along the way that should not have happened. The doctor should have been there. The doctor should have followed up whether she got a phone call or not. She didn't leave any instructions on Brittany's file as to call me if this happens, or even what kind of medications. She didn't even have her home medications listed. It took us like a day and a half to get Brittany's regular medications to her, and we're in the ICU. We're in the ICU, so you think
I have
you're going to get the help you need.
Yeah. I've got either one of you, Doug, I've got your volume up too. I know that you have joined this coalition, 38 is too late, because you want to see the cap lifted on medical malpractice for pain and suffering. What I don't know yet is, are all parties on all sides in agreement that your situation is in fact malpractice and it's a matter of the dollar amount that's in question?
Yes.
I mean, the other side, the doctor and the hospital, as she called it, a sentinel event. So we all are in agreement that this is malpractice.
Correct.
Okay. Because that makes a big difference. All right. Listen, we're going to go to a very quick news break. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Doug's going to talk to us about 38 to life. We'll hear more from Linda as well. If you would like to comment, please feel free. We're going to tackle this as long as it needs to be tackled at 490-5858. And eventually get to the question, should there be a cap lifted on this? It's been 38 years. The dollar amount on the cap, in case you're thinking about this, is $250,000, which doesn't go very far these days, especially when it comes to medical bills, etc. On the other hand, maybe you see it differently in terms of the way your health care costs may go up if this is lifted. We'll break down that kind of stuff. We will talk to the Wilkinson's attorney as well, and you at 490-5858 if you got something to say when we get back on KMJ.
Agents with MadNet eradicated nearly 15,000 pot plants Wednesday night at two separate grow sites within the Sierra National Forest in eastern Madera County. Spokeswoman Erica Stewart.
With the evidence that they've been finding in these particular grows, there's every indication that they're connected to drug trafficking organizations based out of Mexico.
Stewart says no arrests were made. Meanwhile, agents discovered another pot grow this morning near an elementary school. Authorities destroyed 180 plants with an estimated street value of $240,000. Officials say the grow site was just 750 feet away from James Monroe Elementary School. Fresno County firefighters are on the scene of a grass fire east of Clovis. Fire officials say that blaze has spread to one structure. That blaze is burning near Highland and Shields. Authorities say no one has been injured. A federal oversight board has given its approval for the California High-Speed Rail Authority to start construction of the bullet train right here in the Central Valley. The Surface Transportation Board previously ruled that it had oversight of the project, but today that agency granted an exemption to the state. Construction of the first leg of the bullet train from Merced to Fresno will begin later this year. On Wall Street today, the Dow finished 181 points higher, the Nasdaq climbed by 45, and the S&P jumped by 23. 3 332 at KMJ. With our check on the commute, here's Mark Holstein.
And the commute on the freeways locally is just fine. We have one accident, non-injury at Ball and Martin. That's a vehicle into a tree. We also have one down in the South Valley. This is on State Route 190 at 99. It's a non-injury accident. As many as 4 vehicles involved in that crash. Mark Holstein, KMJ Traffic, on the way to work, on the way home, anytime at KMJNow.com.
It's 87 degrees in Fresno with news on the hour and half-hour bulletins at once. I'm Steve Gonzalez on News Talk 580 KMJ and 105.9 the FM KMJ, Central California's local news, weather, and traffic leader.
In June the 14th, KMJ brings you a jazz concert unrivaled by any live music experience that's come to our valley in decades. It's the first in KMJ's Fresno Jazz Series, featuring the headliner Brian Culbertson with 25 #1 hits under his belt. Brian Culbertson will perform with jazz legends Dave Sanborn and Bob James. This smooth night under the stars at Woodward Park Rotary Amphitheater is topped off with fine food and wine and great jazz. It's the KMJ Fresno Summer Jazz Series with Brian Culbertson, Dave Sanborn, and Bob James. Tickets on sale now at the Tower Theater box office, online at FresnoJazz.com, and the KMJ Radio City Studios at Pullman Shaw.
The KMJ Summer Jazz Series, June 14th. Brought to you by the 99 Golden Ale from Tioga Sequoia Brewery, Cardella Winery, Fresno Lincoln, and News Talk 580 and FM 105.9 KMJ.
Stay cool this summer with our fresh new turkey bacon avocado sandwich at Portisubs. Roasted turkey, crispy bacon, and creamy avocado, all sliced fresh just for you. For limited time only. Visit your local Portisubs today or order online at portisubs.com.
News Talk 580 KMJ and Talk Radio 105.9 the FM KMJ. I'm Chris Daniel here till 6 tonight. And we are on the phone, and we have been since 3 o'clock, with Doug and Linda Wilkinson. They lost their daughter, Brittany Wilkinson, in 2009 at Children's Hospital. After, if you've heard the story, this crushingly sad story of the loss of her daughter, who was apparently in great agony before her death for procedures that probably should not have been performed. They did not exactly pertain, again, to the disease that she suffered with all of her life, and she died under, her brain was destroyed, her brainstem was destroyed through cranial pressure. And, Doug, I think I'd like to ask you now, I can't imagine you feeling any other way other than there's no dollar amount that is ever going to help the pain of losing Brittany. Would that be correct?
That would be correct, yeah, Chris. In fact, we have decided as a family that any money that we might be awarded in this case, we're going to set up like a scholarship fund and try to help some kids from, initially from Clovis East High School. That's where she graduated.
Yes.
And also most of the schools around Clovis, and just try and help other kids and, with some money for college. And
wow.
Help them out, keep her name out there, and help keep her memory alive.
Now, Linda, you were right. Unless I missed it, I don't believe that was put in the paper. And it makes the question, I guess, even more in need to be asked, Doug. Why is it that you're seeking to lift the cap of $250,000?
Well, for several reasons. It's not going to help our case. Anything that changes now will not affect the award that we may or may not get. So, and I think it's important that people know that. We're not in this so that we can get a larger award.
Okay.
This thing has been in place since 1975. And, at that point in time, we could buy a loaf of bread for 7 cents, and gasoline was cheap.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been raised. There's no escalator clause in it or anything. And at this point, the only ones that are actually winning in this situation are the insurance companies, because they still collect the premiums from the doctors, but their profits in malpractice insurance has skyrocketed over the years, and there's charts that would show that and everything.
Yes.
And I don't think they're denying that. That's one of the arguments against the idea that cost of medical care will go up because of rising premiums for the doctors. There's a lot of room left for the insurance company to absorb some of that if they actually have to pay out a little more.
I'm guessing here, Doug, but I think it's a reasoned guess. You're saying, because we hear all the time about, the cost of health care already is so high because the doctors have to insure themselves so much against so much litigation in our society. But we have a cap here. And again, folks, I just can't stress this enough. This cap only caps medical malpractice damages for pain and suffering. So, Doug, if I've got this right, California law does not limit economic damages, unlimited damages for lost wages and earning potential in malpractice.
That's correct.
And it does not limit economic damage for medical costs. So if I've got you right, are you saying that the insurers and the legislators at this point have looped all three things in together? In other words, there's a cap on pain and suffering, but there's no cap over here, there's no cap over here, so we have to protect against that liability, so let's just keep it high, the premiums high on the doctors, when in fact there's millions left on the table because of the $250,000 cap for pain and suffering. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And if the thought was carried through, it actually discriminates against poor people and actually against women because of the non-economic thing hasn't been capped. But when you think of a child that's going to school, they have no income, so there's nothing to be awarded there. And if you have no job,
right,
so to speak, you don't get anything. So it's or if you don't make a lot of money, you have a job but you don't make a lot, you're only going to recover non-economic things. You're only going to get a little bit. So it does discriminate, and so there's a lot of different reasons. The one that I kind of feel strongly about is that the Seventh Amendment is being violated here, our constitutional rights, and Amendment 1 for freedom of speech or 2 for gun control, people immediately want to stand up and protect that. But if you ask somebody on the street, would you protect your Seventh Amendment rights? I dare say that most of them would say, what is that? Well, it's our right to a jury trial.
Yes.
And to have a jury of our peers decide what happens. And in this case, the law has taken that out of the hands of the jury and said that no matter what the jury awards, the maximum that will be actually paid out is $250,000. So I think our Seventh Amendment rights are being, violated there.
I cannot think, even if I was to play devil's advocate, I would fail. I can't think of a way that it wouldn't be. So.
Yeah. So, that's a big thing for me personally. And the other thing is it's awfully hard to get an attorney to take one of these cases because by the time the award comes out at $250,000, the case may cost something close to that, and then the actual plaintiffs aren't awarded anything because the attorney fees are so high, and they don't want to take the cases for that reason.
If I could ask, if this question is too personal, please just say, Chris, that's too personal, and you will not hurt my feelings, okay?
Okay.
But in your particular situation with Brittany, did I hear it right that you were $35,000 in, and they hadn't even done the expert, that only covered the expert depositions?
They're not even, they haven't finished with expert depositions, which are relatively expensive.
Yes.
And then we haven't gone to trial, which is quite a bit more than just taking depositions. So, there's a very good chance that the attorney fees will be lessened by, as much as possibly 50%.
Yes.
The attorneys have a set fee that they got, and we were happy to sign with that because we were happy to get an attorney that would take this for us.
Yes.
We're not in this for the award. We're in this because we want accountability for the doctors and the hospitals so that, this won't happen to someone else.
Well, I think accountability for why, this supposedly square deal you're supposed to have with your insurer as well. I mean, I think there's culpability there. They're profiting off of something that, well, like you said, there's money left on the table there, and they'd still do fine. You're also talking about discrimination, and you're talking about, I think, a definite violation of the Seventh Amendment. That's a pretty strong case.
I think so anyway, yes. And actually, one of the old arguments when this passed, and I was in California in 1975 when it passed, and one of the arguments that they put forward was that doctors would leave California if this cap wasn't put in place, and there's absolutely no proof that that actually happens. Other states have put in a cap, and there's no migration of doctors leaving the state because of the caps that are put in. So I don't understand why they say that. I don't think there's any proof behind it.
Sure are a lot of doctors. We hear about how hard it is to get doctors in the Central Valley versus the rest of California, and you can't drive any public intersection and not see a couple of doctor's offices. Doug. Philip has a question for you.
Yeah, Doug, I just keep hearing 38 years. So $250,000 in 1975. This hasn't even been adjusted for inflation, has it?
Nothing. And in fact, there was a short study done on that and what it would be worth now. And I think it's little over $1 million would be the buying power of $250,000 in 1975.
Doug, are there attorneys who are lining up in terms of support for 38's too late? Because it seems to me that if the cap was lifted, it would become more profitable for them to well, no, because, well, I don't know. Would it become more profitable for them, or are they more lining up with health care? Because there's real money there for legal fees.
I don't have any idea on that.
All right.
I know the group that we're working with, they are not malpractice attorneys, so I don't know that they're going to benefit by it. And truthfully, the malpractice attorneys as a whole, try to help people the most they can, and they have a set limit on how much they can make. That's been capped by attorneys for years.
Okay.
So they're not going to be able to make any more than what was available to them before. It's going to be a percentage of what the award is.
So no motivation.
So, you're right. So the motivation is that they should just, whatever cases they have, bring those forward. Unfortunately, the problem is that there are an awful lot of cases that don't come forward because financially they're not feasible.
Or in your case, Brittany was 18. She had not worked. No loss of income there. Yeah. Guys, we've only got a couple minutes, and then we're going to have to go to break. And I'm going to talk to your attorney on the air for a little bit about this. And will he be able to help more on folks that want to get involved on 38 is too long, Doug?
I'm sure he will be. And if not, I'd be happy to put in a couple of plugs.
All right, absolutely. We may keep you on the line when we talk to your attorney then, Doug. Linda, thank you again for for going through the pain of telling the story to the listeners. It needed to be told, and I really, really, really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity.
Oh, please. No, nothing. It jumped off the page for us as soon as we saw it. By the way, what is the current employment status of the doctor in question?
She's still there. I've heard that a nurse isn't there anymore, and a nurse practitioner I know isn't there anymore.
All right.
After 18 years of being at Children's Hospital, you become family with many nurses.
Yes.
And I want to say that the hospital is a great, great hospital. They've got great nurses and doctors, but all you need is one nurse that isn't doing her job. She actually told Brittany screaming wasn't going to help anything, just to be quiet. I'm glad she's gone.
I can imagine you would be.
Yeah, I just pray she finds a job, that doesn't involve children or disabled people or elderly.
Fair enough. Linda, we're going to go...
On another light, I think it's important to know that Linda and I were in the room while all this was happening. We were standing in the corner and actually watched all of this take place.
Oh, Doug, I didn't know you were there as well. Forgive me. I did not know you were there as well.
Yeah, we were in the room. All of this took place.
Was Freedom there too?
Yes.
Check the picture in the B, guys, from Sunday of this beautiful, beautiful guy, service dog as well, Freedom, who now is servicing for Linda. All right, guys, I'm going to go to break. Don't hang up. I'm not quite sure how we're going to work out the phone situation. We're going to bring on their attorney when we come back. Talking about 38 is too long. Would you see a repeal of the 38-year-old California law capping medical malpractice damages for pain and suffering? It is a mere $250,000, and you know how fast that goes. All right, back in a minute. right now. Traffic time just shy of 3:47, and here's Mark Holstein.
Yeah, not a lot going on around town as of yet anyway, so that's kind of good. That's kind of like the way we like it. No accidents on the freeways anyway. We have one over at Washington and Barton. That's a non-injury hit and run. Oh, actually, it's a vehicle into a tree. There is a hit and run on Highway 190 at 99. This accident caused by a big rig damaged 3 vehicles. They're still looking for the big rig. It's out there. Mark Holstein, KMJ traffic on the way to work, on the way home. Anytime at KMJNow.com.
I'm Steve Gonzalez in the KMJ News Center, and coming up at the top of the hour, a large wildfire has forced the evacuation of 1,000 homes in Colorado Springs.
More reaction and fallout to the failure of Measure G. I'm Blake Taylor. I've got the story coming up.
And outgoing Fresno State President John Welty was honored yesterday by faculty and staff. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 4 o'clock.
Chris Daniel for the Schoolhouse Restaurant and Tavern, where they know that doing it right, doing it well, and doing it differently has its rewards. So congratulations to the Schoolhouse, the California Restaurant Association's Newcomer of the Year. Well, that's because they rock, and things are going pretty well at the Schoolhouse, to the point where they would like to ask something of you. Could you possibly make a reservation next time? The word is out, and people want to spend some time. And that's one of the nicest parts of the Schoolhouse. You're going to get high-end food, but in a relaxed atmosphere. And the folks at the Schoolhouse want you to have a good time and take your time. There's walking down that main hallway and seeing all those old things that turn everybody on, whether you went to school at the Schoolhouse or not. You're going to want to spend a lot of time at the Schoolhouse, but so is everybody else. So maybe make that reservation, okay? And again, congrats to the Schoolhouse for being the CRA Newcomer of the Year. I'll bet those award givers had mouths full of meatloaf. The Schoolhouse. 787-3271. Again, 787-3271 at Frankwood and 180 in beautiful Sanger Country.
I am Ray Appleton, and Ray Appleton is going to save you some money and also save you a major headache when the hot temperatures kick in and it blasts up to 110 degrees. Here's what you do. Call Albritton Heating and Cooling and get on their schedule now for a preseason air conditioning tune-up for $89 before it's hot, and everybody starts calling in. And I got to tell you this. In fact, I'm going to keep telling you this until it sinks in. Albritton charges no overtime on the nights or the weekends. And you first-time customers, you'll get a free Starbucks card when the technician arrives. Cool. Albritton Heating and Cooling. Turn to the experts with Carrier. Hey, listen, to find out more and to learn about specials, click albritton.com. And please give them a call and get booked for that preseason tune-up special for your air conditioning unit. $89? Yeah. Dial 1-800, the number 2, and the word service. 800-2-SERVICE. Albritton Heating and Cooling.
Do your droopy, puffy eyes, deep facial wrinkles, or sagging neck make you dread looking in a mirror? At Tiffany's Luxury Medi-Spa, they understand how you feel, and that's why they specialize in facial aesthetics and rejuvenation using the most minimally invasive procedures available today. They've helped hundreds of patients just like you. There are many options to choose from, including Tiffany's 1-hour mid-face lift, 1-hour neck lift, 1-hour eyelid lift, or their latest designer procedure, the Vampire Facelift. In just a short amount of time, your skin will appear younger, smoother, and more vibrant. No surgery, no recovery, no downtime. If you wonder if any of these procedures are right for you, call today for your free consultation and find out how Dr. Andre Edmonds can make you love that mirror again. Complete Tiffany's 1-hour facelift procedure by July 30th and receive a 1-year package of facials or massages absolutely free. Call now. Tiffany's Luxury Medi-Spa in Visalia, 625-4772. That's 625-4772. 625-4772.
Hey, did you hear? Mortgage rates have sunk near their lowest point this year, like all the way down in the 2s. So simple question, how do you save real money? I mean big money when you refinance. Easy, either lock in a super low rate or pay off your home as fast as possible. Well, now you can do both. Hi, I'm Hayes Barnard, founder of Paramount Equity, and I'm fired up. For the first time ever, we're offering a 10-year fixed-rate mortgage for only 2.875%, APR 2.99. So you could save thousands. And can you imagine owning your home free and clear in just 10 years? We'll show you in writing how much you'll save every month, every year, everything with absolutely zero upfront costs, not even for your appraisal. Now, your window for rates this low may be just about to shut. So invest just 5 minutes of your time to call us ask for details right now and lock in a rate down in the twos. Call Paramount Equity at 456-6000. 559-456-6000.
Rates are subject to change. NMLS number 30336. Licensed by the Department of Corporations under the CRMLA. License number 4170047.
Hey, how many days will it reach 100 degrees or greater before the end of June? You could win $500 toward your summer utilities bill from all Brittany Heating and Cooling. Go to KMJNow.com for the details.
News Talk 580 KMJ and Talk Radio 105.9, the FM KMJ. Chris Daniel here along with Philip Teresi, and we are in the middle of this story and the subsequent action that's being taken. That all came about with the passing of 18-year-old Brittany Wilkinson. Her parents, Doug and Linda, have been with us since 3 o'clock. You've heard Linda's tale. You've heard Bill's outlining of why they have joined a growing group of people who are trying, called 38 is too long, who are trying to repeal a 38-year-old California law that caps medical malpractice. Again, this is for pain and suffering only. Medical malpractice at $250,000, which would be never been adjusted for inflation, nothing. Doug has made a very strong case for this is discriminatory against women and children particularly. It's too small amount of money, and it violates the Seventh Amendment, a right to a jury trial. It's not handled this way. To talk more about that with some expert advice is their attorney. William Newkirk joins us. Thank you for being here, Bill. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Boy, when you got Doug outlining it like that, it's like you got yourself a paralegal right in your hip pocket.
Well, Doug really speaks from his heart, and he's gone through a kind of a long and interesting learning curve to learn why these cases are so difficult, and now he's feeling it. Now that he understands it, he feels it. He is like so many people in that regard that are victims of malpractice who can't understand why lawyers don't want to take their cases. It takes a long time to figure it out, and
I guess it's my first question, Bill, to you, actually. I can understand financially why an attorney may not want to represent these kind of cases. Why did you, in fact, take on the case?
Well, it's complicated, as frequently these things are.
Did you say you were an attorney, sir?
Yeah. The reason we took this case is because we happen to believe that this is really egregious malpractice. We also happen to believe that our clients weren't likely to be able to get lawyers who were experienced in litigating these cases in the Fresno area. There just aren't a lot of people up there who like to do this kind of work. We knew some of the physicians involved in this case. We actually knew some of the doctors in the community who were appalled by the care that they received, and they asked us to get involved. And because that was the case, looking at the overall picture of this, we thought this might actually be a good time to showcase for the legal community in Fresno and surrounding counties the unfairness of MICRA and the unfairness of that $250,000 cap.
Excuse me, Bill, just 1 second. I have never said this during this hour, and I should have. When he said MICRA, what he means, folks, is the Medical Injury Compensation Reform Act from 1975 that put this cap on. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill.
Right. There have been a couple of challenges in the courts of appeals. There was a recent case in Fresno County maybe 2.5, 3 years ago that involved this same issue, whether or not a jury who returned a verdict in favor of the plaintiff against some physicians and a hospital in the area in excess of $1 million in non-economic damages should have their verdict upheld. The Court of Appeals in Fresno said, this was all decided back in 1975 and the years surrounding that, and we don't want to upset this. We're not going to change the rule. That's up to the legislature. The legislature hasn't, and there are a host of reasons why that's so. So we wanted to kind of have that issue revisited with both the legislature and with the courts of appeal.
What do you think the primary reasons for that are?
Why they haven't done it? It's been political. This is something that the insurance industry spent a lot of money and a lot of time demonizing lawyers and demonizing the process. and they want to make certain they can continue to keep the astronomical profits they make off of medical malpractice insurance at the levels that they are.
Do you think Bill has that right in that they group this medical malpractice settlement for pain and suffering along with medical malpractice for medical costs and medical malpractice for loss of wages and earning potential? Neither of those are capped, so they throw this all in. And Bill basically said they leave a lot of money on the table with this cap, and the profits could already be substantial without having to have a cap here, which could dissolve easily. As is happening with the Wilkinsons, 35,000 in, and you haven't gotten past expert depositions, and you're doing your job. I'm not, that's how it works. Is he grouping that? Is that the scheme?
Well, it really is, and it really has been, and there's ample proof that's the case. I mean, there's really very little evidence that claims experience has anything to do with setting rates for malpractice insurance for physicians, and that's not just something that lawyers are saying, and not just something that particularly plaintiffs' lawyers are saying. It's something that has been said by insurance defense people. It's been said by insurance executives, even executives inside the medical malpractice arena. So it's absolutely the case. This malpractice claims and payouts have very little, if any, impact on setting rates for malpractice insurance premiums for physicians, and they just aren't going to affect the way business is done. So,
you would, if nothing else, the idea of at least increases allowed for inflation. I can't. I mean, $250,000 in the courts. When you consider the kind of cases you're going to have and the lengths, when you've got these behemoths defending themselves, that's going to vaporize. At least inflationary adjustment.
Well, you're right. I mean, there's something that truly needs to be done, but to make it affordable for people to be able to get lawyers who are qualified to do this kind of work to be able to do it. This is among the most difficult kind of litigation that exists. You have to understand a very science-oriented discipline, and you have to approach it in a very social-oriented fashion, understanding the minute rules of each to be able to be successful on behalf of your client. And that isn't what is commonly found. I mean, there are certainly people who are great lawyers who just simply don't want to litigate medical malpractice cases, and there are certainly a lot of people who aren't going to be able to understand the medicine of this and appreciate their limitations and don't want to go there.
You guys hang tight for just 1 second. I'm up against the clock. We'll be back with all three folks involved in the Wilkinson case, and 38 is too long. If you got a comment, 490-5858. Back after news on KMJ. News Talk 580, KMJ, Talk Radio 105.9, the FM KMJ. Chris Daniel here, and Philip Teresi as well. Phones are open at 490-5858, although we have three folks on the line right now that we've been talking to for about an hour. Linda and Doug Wilkinson are here. You probably saw their story in the Sunday Bee. They lost their daughter, Brittany, at the age of 18. They lost her in a really terrible way. They were both in the room when her cranial pressure from shunting, she had a buildup of spinal fluid, in addition to the mitochondrial disease she had had all her life, built up, and she was shunted. And what killed her was her cranial pressure went to a rating of 177. Normal is between 4 and 9, and so you can only imagine her entire brain and brainstem was destroyed. Malpractice was brought up, and of course there's a case there. All sides seem to agree with that. And we heard that story. But what makes the story even more interesting is that the Wilkinsons, along with their attorney who is with us, William Newkirk, are getting to our part now of 38 is too long. What they're trying to do is to repeal a 38-year-old California law. It's called MICRA, the Medical Injury Compensation Reform Act of 1975, that has not changed an iota since 1975. It limits medical malpractice damages for pain and suffering, not the other couple, medical costs or loss of earning potential and wages, but pain and suffering They want to lift that cap. It's $250,000, the same as it was in 1975, never adjusted for inflation. And also, and I think Doug really expressed it best, this is discriminatory, especially against women and children. Obviously, no earning potential there for Brittany. And it's too little money. And it's a Seventh Amendment violation in that there's no right to trial by a jury on this. So we continue, and I had to cut you off for time. We're with Bill Newkirk as well, the Wilkinson attorney. Bill, continue. I'm sorry to have had to cut you off there.
Well, I've kind of forgotten where we were.
Well, let's start with this. Let's start with this then. A little bit more about 38 is too long. How big is the coalition? Who's involved? Who's fighting against it? And what is the progress so far?
Well, the coalition really consists primarily right now of, interestingly enough, a group that is kind of a taxpayers group that has questioned a lot of bad legislation and litigation over the years. A consumer-oriented group. But that group also has, obviously, the Consumer Attorneys of California backing it, and the California Nursing Association, which backs this proposal. You'd think that their membership would be people who would potentially be opposed to this, but they see the need for reform because it's a very unfair rule. So the coalition's a huge coalition. It's being sponsored by a fellow by the name of Bob Pack. Bob Pack himself, CEO of one of the major computer corporations, software corporations, was himself a victim of medical malpractice, where his two children were both really killed as a consequence of a driver who was impaired, having gotten his drugs that he was using at the time from shopping around among the physicians that write narcotics and write prescription drugs and controlled substances for virtually anybody who walks through the door without the usual controls, and who had been doing that for a long period of time, and who had been reported and investigated to the by the state medical board, and the state medical board had done virtually nothing about it. So Bob Pack used his own funds and started the process, and really has been instrumental in getting this whole process of 38 is too late started. You've said 38 too long, but it's either way, 38 years is too long a period of time to have not made a change in this very restrictive and constrictive consumer rule.
Yeah, anybody who wants to answer this, feel free. Now, I know that Californians Allied for Patient Protection, which is an odd name for an organization that is against this, excuse me, says that increasing the cap just to $500,000 would raise healthcare costs by up to $9.5 billion per year. Do you agree with that?
But that's just not something they can ever back. That's a claim that is made out of whole cloth without any economic support whatsoever. It is unlikely there's any substance to it. It's unlikely there's anything that they can point to that ever proves the premise that they're using. The truth of the matter is that the cost of medical malpractice insurance premiums is less than 1% of the average practitioner's cost of doing business.
Really?
And that, oh, absolutely. And this is something that everybody's known for a long period of time. Really, the question is whether or not the insurance carriers are going to pass on the increased cost of the insurance process for claims made to the practitioner, to the medical practitioner. If they pass on those costs in a way that is regulated by the state insurance commission currently, so that they have to justify a cost increase and a decrease in profits unless there is an increase in the cost of premiums.
Yes.
If they have to do that, but we think very clearly they're not going to be able to demonstrate that there's any increase in cost in the cost of the industry for malpractice claims, because repeatedly the evidence before investigative bodies has been that there simply is very little impact on the rate of insurance for malpractice premiums based on the experience in litigation. Just doesn't happen. It's been investigated in the state, in the federal legislature. It's been investigated repeatedly.
Guys, we have about 3 minutes left here, and I wonder if there isn't another possible enemy here, more of a societal push. If I know anything, I know two things. Every single person loves to complain about the litigious nature of our society and how we all sue each other way too much. And I also know that in the minute an opportunity presents itself, those same people will sue as fast as they can. But there's been a lot of disparaging over the years of notable cases of the whole pain and suffering thing. Given the idea that Doug and Linda, no amount of money is ever going to stop the pain. Linda's suffering from PTSD from the night of Brittany's death. Nothing's going to stop that pain. Is it the pain and suffering aspect that are you getting pushback on that from people who are saying, since it's an unassuageable injury, why is it there even in the first place? Are you hearing anything like that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and you approach it in a very interesting way. Pain and suffering is really kind of become a colloquial shorthand expression of what the notion is supposed to represent, and it doesn't adequately. I will say that in a wrongful death claim, such as my client, such as the Wilkinsons,
yes.
There is no recovery for their pain and suffering for the wrongful death of Brittany.
Right.
They're entitled only to recover the economic value of something that really is difficult to conceptualize, and that is the loss of comfort, companionship, society, solace, and the other things that would have been contributed in the normal setting of the mother or father and child.
Yes.
We're just talking about their loss. There's nothing that they're entitled to recover for their grief, because that is something you really can't change with money. It's the loss.
Right.
And it becomes a very difficult thing to try to value.
And excuse me for interrupting, but for the listeners that join us in the 4 o'clock hour, the Wilkinsons, should they prevail and get the $250,000 or whatever it winds up being, will be donating this money to help other children. I just want to make sure that's clear. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Right. But you see, that notion really is what supports the claim. We can't charge our clients an hourly rate for the recovery. We have to, the only way that we can get access to justice for most of the people who are victims of this sort of thing, because of the economics of it, is to be able to take these cases on a contingency fee.
Right.
Taking a percentage that also happens to be limited by the micro rules in a way that makes no sense socially. But nonetheless, it's really a question of being able to afford access to justice from what is the potential recovery. And the way in which this is structured makes it virtually impossible to even support the cost of the litigation with
no question about it
amount of recovery.
No question about it.
Even if you could say there was a formula to readily fix it, there's just simply no way to be able to do that.
Or it would just be a net loss or a net zero after you go through the case.
Right.
Guys, I have to stop with you all. First of all, Bill, thank you for delineating it very nicely. Doug, thank you for bringing up the whole Seventh Amendment issue that I never even thought about. And Linda, thanks to you most of all for having to tell that tale that I know breaks your heart.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for letting us on to clarify some of the things that we wanted to bring out in the story that was I think it was Monday's paper. But
yes, and we're going to talk about it a bit when we get back from break on the phones and such. So if you hear something that doesn't sound right or whatever, you guys are more than welcome to jump in. You have that backline number. Use it if you need to. Linda,
okay.
thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Linda and Doug Wilkinson and their attorney, William Newkirk. Stuart, I see you there. He is a former malpractice defense attorney. He is now in favor of 38 is too late. And we're going to talk to him in a second. He's just a guy calling in, so why not you? 490-5850. What do you think about what you heard? Which side are you on? And, I brought it up at the end there, but we do have some funny feelings about settlements for pain and suffering. Where do you land on that? Or even better, if you were involved with something, if you have received damages for pain and suffering or lost them. Where are you at about that? Would you see this law uncapped? And what do you think in a general sense about settlements for pain and suffering? At 490-5858. We'll take your calls next. Right now, it's traffic time. We got some fires out there as well. Here's Mark Holstein.
Yeah, that's about the only thing going on around Fresno Clovis right now is the fires going on, but it's starting to spread. As a matter of fact, there's a new fire going on. The original one was Shields and Highland. A lot of smoke out there, and it's jumping all around. We now have several roads blocked off. McKinley between Highland and McCall. We have westbound McKinley at Academy. Shut down traffic there. Belmont and McCall is blocked. Olive and McCall is blocked, so a lot of things going on due to that fire. This report brought to you by Sequoia Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Sanger, where you'll never be treated better. Mark Holstein, KMJ traffic on the way to work, on the way home, anytime at KMJNow.com.
Look for clear skies and 60 tonight for your low, 93 and mostly sunny tomorrow, and 89 right now on a beautiful day at KMJ.
Celebrate Father's Day weekend with KMJ. Join John and Jen, Chris Daniel, and Ray Appleton at the KMJ Summer Jazz Series Friday night, June 14th. We're serving up fine wine, great food, and smooth jazz from Brian Culbertson, David Sanborn, and Bob James. Tickets on sale now at FresnoJazz.com. The Tower Theater box office and the KMJ Radio City Studios at Palm and Shaw. The Summer Jazz Series from News Talk 580 and FM 1059.
KMJ. Hi, I'm Marty Doherty. And I'm Chad Doherty. We're the owners of Sequoia Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, in Sanger. I love being a dealer in Sanger. I could drive clear across town and take my kids to school and only go through about 3 stoplights.
We really love what we do.
Both Chad and I grew up in the car business. We started off as car washers, parts department, service department, selling cars. We've done it all. This is proving to be one of our biggest years, so that means we're able to offer you an even bigger savings. We've got huge factory rebates or 0% APR financing for qualified buyers on select models. From the fuel-efficient Cruise, Malibu, and Sonic with freeway mileage up to 42 miles per gallon, a great selection of Silverado, Sierra, Traverse, Acadia, Enclave, Tahoe, Suburban, and Yukon. Chad, we got construction coming. I know you got a lot of cars coming in. We just need to keep them moving. We need to keep this place clean so we can get through this as quick as possible.
What are we going to do with all these vehicles?
Move them. We're Sequoia Chevrolet, Buick, GMC at Academy and 11th in Sanger. Find new roads where you'll never be treated better. For more details, check out sequoiachevy.com.
A question for all of the restaurants in the Valley that serve top-end cuisine. Why so serious? Does there need to be a $500 vase on the wall or 10 for you to convince us that we're getting really good food? Chris Daniel for my favorite restaurant in the entire Valley. The Schoolhouse Restaurant and Tavern. Comfortable atmosphere, great cuisine. Why can't you combine the best food Grandma ever made with a chef who's an honor graduate from the California Culinary Academy? You can get an unreal slab of meatloaf while your dinner guest is having unbelievable mahi-mahi and crab risotto. Oh, man. A place where you can get burgers for lunch and an ahi amuse for an appetizer at dinner. A place with a fantastic wine collection that also offers you moonshine. No kidding. A place that does not put salt and pepper on the tables for a very good reason, but makes its own ketchup and mayonnaise. No Miracle Whip yet, which is a crime. Get comfortable and get some really great food. Open Wednesday through Sunday for lunch and dinner and Sunday brunch. Check out the menu at schoolhousesanger.com. The Schoolhouse at Frankwood and 180 in beautiful Sanger country.
This is the Mortgage Moment with Hayes Barnard, founder of Paramount Equity. Hayes, are rates still near record lows?
It's true. Rates have sunk near their lowest point this year, all the way down in the 2s. You can save real money. I mean, big money right now when you refinance.
So which is better, locking in a low rate or paying your home off faster?
Well, now you can do both. For the first time ever, we're offering a 10-year fixed-rate mortgage for only 2.875%, APR 2.99. So you could save thousands. Just imagine owning your home free and clear in just 10 years.
But how much are the total savings?
We'll show you in writing how much you'll save every month, every year, everything with absolutely zero upfront costs, not even for the appraisal. Now, your window for rates this low may be just about to shut. So invest just 5 minutes of your time to call us for details and lock in a rate down in the 2s. Call Paramount Equity at 456-6000. 559-456-6000.
Rates are subject to change. NMLS number 30336. Licensed by the Department of Corporations under the CRMLA. License number 4170047.
The art of the barbecue. Fancy Art has a fancy frame around it. Barbecue Art is framed by beautiful condiments and sides, like 16-ounce wishbone Italian dressing for just $1.98, 32-ounce Land O'Lakes heavy whipping cream for just $4.66, and 12-ounce Lee & Perrins marinated in a bag for just $2.88. You wouldn't frame the Mona Lisa with this stuff, but the Mona Lisa doesn't taste as good as your brisket. Save money, live better, Walmart.
This is a Toys R Us news update.
Toys R Us has a special message for toy fans of all ages.
Thank you.
To show their appreciation, Toys R Us has created their first ever Friends and Family sale. 3 days only in stores Thursday through Saturday. So stop what you're doing, go to ToysRUs.com, download your Friends and Family coupon, and save 20% on your entire regular price purchase.
Toys R Us. Why shop anywhere else for toys? Why?
In-store only. Exclusions apply. See Toys R Us for details.
When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro.
Chris Daniel, afternoons, FM and AM on KMJ.
What is that?
Where's all that smoke coming from?
The Pewter Schmidt Industries refinery. And it's not smoke. It's a giant cloud of pollution.
Oh, my God. If that gets past the bad neighborhoods and reaches us, that's going to be a big problem.
Chris Daniel on KMJ.
This is what I was afraid was going to happen.
424 KMJ, we're brought to you by Unwired Broadband. For fast, affordable, and reliable internet service, get the only carrier-grade fixed wireless network in the Valley. It's Unwired Broadband, home of no usage limits or throttling at 559-322-8888. All right, still talking about 38 is too late. And we thank the Wilkinsons and their attorney again for all the time they gave and the pain they had to go through to tell us the story of the loss of their daughter, Brittany, in 2009. I guess Stuart here. Stuart, you are a former malpractice defense attorney. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you for holding, first of all. You are now in favor of 38 is too late. Why?
Well, I've changed from wearing one hat to the other. Some would say going from the black hat to the white or vice versa.
Yeah.
I know for the past 20-some years have had the privilege of representing a lot of folks who have been in the unfortunate position of having issues with medical malpractice. It's not the sole thing that I do, but it's part of what I do for law practice.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started in the 70s, it was just at the beginning of MICRA, and even those of us in the defense kind of shook our heads at how unfair it was that these arbitrary caps would be put in place. Take the situation like the Wilkinsons, for example, or others, and yet it's been that way, not only to have the arbitrary cap, but the fact, as you pointed out, there's been no adjustment over the years to try to take into account the changes, which in today's money would be over $1 million.
That's stunning to me, yeah. Yeah.
It really is, and I'll just kind of throw in another real quick example, because I know you probably got a lot of callers, but just...
Actually, no, you're it. So feel free to go long.
When you decide you want to cut me off, just,
All right.
Stop. Lawyers tend to talk, but,
No way.
I had a malpractice case just this past summer and was in court here in Fresno for over a month against a hospital that had said they'd done nothing wrong and they wouldn't offer anything to settle the case. So other people didn't want to do it, and I took the case on, and after over a month in trial, we prevailed, and the hospital was found responsible. Now, to give you an idea, though, my client, because of the malpractice, is a man in his 20s that had hopes of a career in working in heavy equipment. That's now a paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Right.
Okay? Now, according to the law, he could be awarded what he's going to lose in terms of future income and future medical care and such, but he's going to have a cap of only $250,000 for being in that wheelchair for the rest of his life and never again being able to snowboard, water ski, just go out and go on a hike with his girlfriend or anything like that. So number one, that just seems insanely unfair to begin with. But in the second place, what's something I don't know that people talk about a whole lot, but I think Mr. Wilkinson was alluding to it, or you were in the previous comment. What about the cost of going to court?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That gets taken out of what's recovered. In that particular case, by the time we saw it through trial, the expenses, I'm talking out of my pocket, not my time, not my staff's time, But the money I spent to have to hire doctors to come and testify and pay court reporters and everything else was over $180,000.
Yikes. Yikes.
If all you collect is the economic loss, the wages and the medical in the future and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a cap of $250, and then out of that $250 someplace, you're supposed to pay attorney's fees and costs and everything else. There's nothing left. The bottom line is that by the time all the expenses are incurred, the person who's in a wheelchair for the rest of their life or other people with really horrible situations really don't even end up in their pocket with enough money to even simply cover their future loss of wages, their future medical care.
Although they can litigate for those loss of wages separately, if I have that right. But the point, I mean, we look at the Wilkinsons, down 35,000. They haven't even gotten past expert depositions yet. It almost seems intentional, this micro law. Do you feel that way at all?
There's no question in my mind that that's how it was established on two fronts. One is to put the cap so low that there will be no incentive for trial attorneys to take on the cases because there simply isn't an upside financially for themselves or for their clients. Nobody's interested in doing it. And then the second thing that was alluded to is that there's also a cap on what attorneys are allowed to charge as an attorney fee. And let's face it, as he was saying, we charge by law. We're required to have a limit, and it's only based on if we win, we get paid. If we lose, we lose. So, for example, in that case, if I'd have lost, I'd need $180,000. And if you tallied up my time and charged like any other attorney in town who would charge by the time, it would probably be the equivalent of several $100,000 worth of time.
Yikes.
So the medical community and the lobbyists on their behalf, by enacting these laws, can basically put a stranglehold so that there's just no incentive. And people can say, well, that's great. The lawyers don't need any more cases. But come on. What's fair for the people like the Wilkinsons or like my client or others who legitimately have loss of a loved one or somebody's permanently injured for life, and nobody wants the case because they're going to lose money even if they win?
Hang tight, Stuart. Can you hang tight for a second? I got to do a quick 3-minute break here with a news check. Doug brought up two other completely different issues that pertain to this discrimination in the Seventh Amendment. I'd really like to hear you weigh in on this, especially as a gentleman who describes himself as a convert, a former medical malpractice defense attorney, now in favor of 38 is too long. And you can find that, by the way, 38 is too long at 38istoo long.com if you'd like to check it out. Your calls are also more than welcome, 490-5858. When we get back in 3 minutes from the news check on KMJ.
Fresno County firefighters are on the scene of a grass fire east of Clovis. Fire officials say several structures, including some abandoned homes, have been destroyed. The fast-moving blaze is burning near Highland and Shields. Officials have ordered evacuations for McKinley Avenue from Highland to McCall. Authorities say no one has been injured. The cause of that fire is not known at this time. A 3-alarm fire damaged 2 homes this morning. It broke out in the 4300 block of East Holland near Ashland and Cedar around 4 o'clock. Battalion Chief Casey Clark says one home was vacant, but 5 people lived in the other house and now have to leave.
There's significant attic and roof damage to both houses and some exterior damage as well. So it's a significant loss for the family.
The cause of that fire is under investigation. Fresno police say they're still investigating the death of a 15-month-old boy who was accidentally left in a vehicle as temperatures were around 100 degrees last Friday. Authorities say the family arrived at their southwest Fresno home after going to the store and began unloading their children and groceries. The child was left in the car after the mother believed that the father had brought the youngster into the house. The boy was later transported to CRMC, where he was pronounced dead. Police are still trying to determine if a crime was committed. On Wall Street today, the Dow finished 181 points higher. The Nasdaq jumped by 45, and the S&P climbed by 23. 432 at KMJ. With our check on the cars, here's Mark Holstein.
A brand new accident just occurred at westbound Shaw on ramp to 41. It looks like a non-injury, 3 vehicles, and there is some road blockage around it. Up in the Merced County area, Applegate Road at Adwater Jordan Road. have an injury accident, a milk tanker versus a vehicle. There is a road blockage around that one. This report brought to you by Mercedes-Benz of Fresno. If you want to be part of one of the world's best brands, call Scott Beal at Mercedes-Benz of Fresno about job opportunities and sales. He will train. All you need is great potential. Mark Holste, KMJ Traffic on the way to work, on the way home, anytime at KMJNow.com.
It's 89 degrees in Fresno with news on the hour and half-hour bulletins at once. I'm Steve Gonzalez on News Talk 580 KMJ and 105.9 the FM KMJ, Central California's local news, weather, and traffic leader.
We heard an ad on the radio from a used car dealer that sounded too good to be true. All they needed was our information and we were approved. Waiting for our approval, we looked around and found Selma Chrysler. We're driving a brand new car now. By the way, still waiting for the approval from the other used car dealer.
Visit Selma Chrysler and Hanford Chrysler during their Dodge event going on now. Drive away in a brand new 2013 Avenger with over $4,000 net savings off MSRP. Shop one of the largest combined inventories in the Valley and drive away in the car you want. All you have to do is visit Selma Chrysler and Hanford Chrysler during their Dodge event going on now. Selma Chrysler, 15 minutes south of Fresno, and Hanford Chrysler, 15 minutes west of Visalia. And with one of the largest combined inventories in the Valley, there's more choices for you, plus tremendous savings. Hanford discount, $501. VIN number 702520. Selma discount, $776. $3,500 factory rebate. VIN number 710176. In 7113.
Chris Daniel for Sleep Train. You know the Sleep Train sells beds. They also sell a few other things, and I tripped onto one that has really helped me a lot. Nobody ever talks about the pillow. And we don't really spend a lot of time researching pillows or investing a little bit in a decent pillow for everybody's head and neck, and even more so for people with sleep apnea. Hey, you go get a big soft pillow, you bury your face in there, I can't breathe at night. Well, I wonder why. I picked up a Tempur-Pedic pillow at Sleep Train, and I really like it. I really test drove it first before I talked about it. I've had it about 3 months now. First thing that was weird about it was, wow, that's got some weight to it. Second thing is, it's hard, and I like it. I don't mean like a block of wood, but it doesn't have that give. It gives you the support. There's all different shapes for different heads, different neck problems, and different breathing problems like the sleep apnea that I have. You need to think about pillows at least more than just what color cover looks nice with the bedspread, because that's where your brain box is, and that's running everything. Make sure it's comfortable, too. At Sleep Train, they really are your ticket to a better night's sleep. In News Talk 580 KMJ, Talk Radio 105.9 the FM KMJ. Chris here. I told you 3 minutes, it was 4. Sorry about that. We added a spot talking to our guests. Right now we're talking to Stuart, a medical malpractice defense attorney who has now kind of switched his perspective on this and is backing the Wilkinson family with the 38 is too long campaign, trying to lift the cap on medical malpractice damages from pain and suffering. Your comments are more than welcome. What are your feelings about pain and suffering? Because some of us have a negative vibe on that, but then it happens to you, and you wonder. Stuart, Doug Wilkinson brought up two other really good points. I kind of want to hear your takes on this. He also claims that this cap is discriminatory against children and women. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And first of all, you know, being the lawyer, I got to correct you on one thing real quick. It's 38 is too late, L-A-T-E. So if people are looking it up, that's how they'll find the information.
38istoo-late.com. My apologies. I said it so many times I went off the rails. Sorry.
That's all right. But, you know, it's really true because it seems to favor those that are out in the workforce because then they've got a loss of income and then there'll be more compensation to them. But those that are either children that are affected by it or even seniors. You know, I had somebody come to me not too long ago whose husband died, and it seemingly was because of medical malpractice. And we evaluated and had to say, well, he was retired. There was no more income coming in. There was no medical. The total value of that claim would be $250,000. And so in doing the math, I'd say, ma'am, if I take your case and have to go all the way through trial, and it's true, these things cannot be tried for $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000. They're always over $50,000 and usually over $100,000 of expense to go through a trial on one of these. When all the dust settles, either A, we lose and you get nothing except for another torturous ordeal, or B, we win and you might get a few tens of thousands of dollars and so on and so forth and to go through all of this. And often the response is, I don't want to do it. You know, this is just, it's not right. It's unfair.
And Doug also brings up, Stuart, that he thinks that this whole system is a Seventh Amendment violation, denying you your right to trial by jury, letting a jury decide. How is he?
I think he's...
Go ahead.
You know, I didn't hear that part of the comment. Frankly, I was on the road and just kind of tuned in right before I called in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's truth to that because the way that the system is stacked specifically for this, it's not in place for any other type of injury or death claim. And I handle a variety of types of different civil cases. This is the one and only where the medical community is singled out for this sort of protection, both in the amounts that those that are injured or die would be compensated, as well as limiting the compensation for those doing the work. You know, really, it's no different than saying, you know, we're kind of fed up with what auto shops charge. So we're going to pass a law that say you can't charge more than $20 for a brake job, right?
Yeah.
Well, how many people are going to be repairing brakes? They're not going to get repaired. You have a bunch of broken cars. But that would be unfair, wouldn't it? To impose that and say, well, you work at KMJ, that ought to be a $5 an hour job because it's so prestigious, you should enjoy doing it. So
it is a $5 an hour job.
Well, look at all the kudos you get, and you know all the notoriety.
Oh well, yes, that feeds my belly. I'm just messing.
There we go.
I'm just talking about Philip's salary. That's all.
But when they put these sorts of limitations in place, then effectively they're just saying you can't touch us because nobody's going to want to do it because it's not going to be financially worthwhile at all. I'm not talking about major windfalls, not talking jackpot justice. I'm talking just enough to pay my expenses to take the case on and go to trial. It's really, really difficult. And I know you probably got a couple other questions, but I'll throw one other comment out real quickly.
Yes.
About something that we all get concerned about. You know, a lot of folks, and I'm very conservative. I'm a conservative Republican. So, you know, I embrace the issues that I hear on your radio station all the time. But one of the things is people think, well, there's this, you know, crazy out-of-control jury verdicts. But you know what? That's why there's both judges and appellate courts. Because in that rare circumstance when a verdict really does get excessive, the judge that's seen the entire trial, the appellate court that's going to review it, is in place to bring reason and rationality back in the unlikely event there's a runaway jury, you know? Yes. So, and truly, the 38 is too late campaign is not saying to eliminate the cap. The whole thrust is to say we ought to just bring fairness and simply let that cap be increased to reflect the change of the economy over the past 38 years. That's all that is being asked.
Where do you personally stand on that? Would you just lift the cap and let the chips fall where they may, or would you bring it to a certain number?
Well, personally, I would get rid of the cap entirely. I think that if a doctor does wrong or other healthcare professional does wrong, it should be no different in terms of responsibility of pay that which the wrong causes, pay the harm that wrong causes. No different than if you or I blow a red light and hurt somebody, there shouldn't be an artificial cap that we owe them X dollars, but no more. It should be whatever a reasonable judge and jury make a determination is fair, and if it's excessive, that's why there's judges and appellate courts to rein it back in. I think that it should be on par with every other aspect of civil rights and obligations within our society.
Well, not only that, I think it's the counterbalance to the incredible amount of responsibility that these physicians have earned and we have put upon them. I mean, it cuts both ways, does it not?
Well, I think it does, and that's why it's been kind of a compelling thing for a lot of people to look at it and say, you know, we trust our doctors, and I mean, I respect the fact that they've had to put in a tremendous amount of work in their lives and their hands every day, you know. I rarely take on these cases, and when I do, it's only after a lot of thorough research to look at it. And I think that attorneys that handle medical malpractice do that. They really investigate to make sure they have opinions that support them, because it's a lot of time and work on our end to do it, and it better be for both the right cause and the probability is that we can establish that there was something wrong that actually took place.
And I guess the last point I would make on this, Stuart, is, you know, why is there a cap at all through this MICRA Act on this one portion of malpractice suit when there's no limit for economic damage for medical costs and allows for unlimited damage for low wages and earning potential? By lifting the cap on this not only, I think, equalizes the three parts, but it also equalizes it even more for the people that fall into categories that don't get paid very well from the other two.
Well, you're absolutely correct. It does make it more fair. I mean, the whole politics behind why it passed was back in the mid-'70s, there was this notion that there was, at least it was proffered by the insurance carriers, that there was some medical malpractice crisis and healthcare crisis, and this would be a way to limit expenses and so on. And so it was able to get past the legislature and then Governor Brown. But interestingly, in the few years after it was passed in 75, the malpractice premiums, the insurance companies continued to charge more and more and more in premiums, even though the law had been passed. It wasn't until the insurance commissioner himself or herself, whoever was in power back then, I forgot the year, but it was several years after the law was passed, and after premiums continued to go up, that the insurance commissioner said, whoa, and they put the brakes on it and started to rein the premiums back in. But it wasn't because of this micro statute. It was because of the insurance commissioner recognizing the unfair profits that the carriers were making, that they finally put a cap on that.
There it is. Hey, Stuart, thanks for the time on this. I got to let you go, but thank you very much for the time you gave us.
Well, thanks for listening to me. I sure appreciate it.
All right. Again, 38istolate.com if you want to check this out for yourself. Philip, any final thoughts on this? I mean, you've heard the whole thing. You've heard the heartbreaking story. You've heard the constitutionality from Doug's position. I find it hard to defend in terms of keeping this cap on.
It's absolutely indefensible. It's very obviously the insurance companies and big medicine, if you'll excuse the term, trying to defend against being held accountable. $250,000 is nothing. What happened to Brittany Wilkinson was horrible, unthinkable. I can't imagine as a parent surviving that. I can't imagine walking out of that room myself. That said, if a doctor screws up, they need to be held responsible. It's one thing to screw up and throw in an extra stitch where you didn't need one. It's another thing entirely to kill a patient because you were busy at a freaking barbecue.
Yes, and even the in-hospital treatment on this with the nurse practitioner as well. But separate question, I mean, just, it's I know after hearing that it's hard to separate yourself, but this thing keeps running around in my head. If we had, try to pretend we haven't done this for the past hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just came to you and said, Philip, give me the first thing you think of when I say pain and suffering.
Lawsuit.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you have any visceral reaction, though? Is it negative, positive, or is it I got to hear the case? You know what I'm saying?
It's absolutely, I have to hear the case.
Because that's how the people who are defending this are going to come after you get glazed over with medical costs and insurance and blah, 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 blah. They're just going to say, aren't you sick of people suing each other for pain and suffering? Because we all think that everybody does it too much, except when it happens to ourselves.
And I think if somebody has to come out and say, aren't you sick of hearing about their pain and suffering, the perfect response is to take Laura's conversation about her daughter and have it follow. There's pain and suffering. Why don't you justify hanging onto your profits against that?
Yeah, woman being treated for PTSD after what she saw her daughter go through.